Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Hope you're well. Hope you're all having a good day so far. And I thought I would do a bit of a long format kind of YouTube video, which is something I probably haven't done in a while. But James was pressing me to get something up, and I thought, what the fuck not, eh? I think we got the Milan vlog, which would have come out recently, which involves me, and as well as the push session with me, James, and Jude. So a little bit out, but obviously more doesn't hurt. And I thought I'd just go over a little Q&A. It's not really much of a Q&A. It's just something I plugged in to get some questions which might allow you to get to know me a little bit better, provide a little bit of an insight of what I'm about, so on and so forth. And we'll keep this short and sweet for those interested, of course. Hopefully, there is some of you that are interested. I'm not particularly sure, but we'll see how that goes and we'll crack on from there. So, nonetheless, thank you very much. Let's get rolling with the questions. So, number one, what's the biggest mistake you see when people are trying to build muscle? There's so many mistakes that I see when individuals are trying to build muscle. I think the biggest thing is the constant flipping. I can't think of a better word of the process. So the incapacity to actually see something through, whether that be phase dependent, whether that be a training program, whether that be a PED setup for enhanced bodybuilders, so on and so forth, and failing to acknowledge the fundamentals of progression, the fundamentals of progression of training, progressive overload, so on and so forth. And instead, people will resort to like fancy protocols, fancy procedures, fancy peptides, fancy recoverability measures, when realistically, it's a concept of trying to not get fat, getting a little bit stronger every single week, and exposing yourself to similar parameters every single week, making sure you're sleeping well and making sure you're ultimately eating enough. And it's really that simple. If we really just simplified it to what we thought it was before the age of social media, things would work and progress so much smoother, so much better. And if people acknowledge that it is a long game, it is a very long game, that would make it so much easier too. Question two. How do you stay motivated when you're deep into a prep or feeling burnt out? I acknowledge the task on hand. I acknowledge what I signed up to. I acknowledge what I need to achieve, and I stick fat to my routines. I stick fat to the things I do religiously. My sleep-wake cycle, the time I have meals, the way I prepare my meals, the meals which I eat. And I acknowledge that sometimes it's a game of ticking boxes, and it doesn't really matter too much how you feel if the why is great enough. And if the why is great enough, and if you can resort back to your why, and that why can provide you with some weight, it's going to be so much easier for you. What's your process balancing intensity and recovery in training? I don't really like that question. I'd probably try to get a new question if I could with that. Balancing intensity and recovery in training. We need to assess that you're actually recovering first and foremost. But I wouldn't necessarily look at pulling back intensity if recoverability was an issue. I'd look at optimizing recoverability. And then if that was optimized, I'd look at nurturing training load or training frequency. And that would be how I'd go about it. But generally speaking, if your volume is adequate yet not substantial, and you're executing basic recoverability procedures and you're getting that little bit stronger every session again, it shouldn't really be too much of a problem. But generally speaking, avoid your drop sets, avoid your giant sets, avoid your cluster sets. And even potentially, I love rest pause sets, but maybe you need to avoid your rest pause sets. But generally, it's a case of volume and just general recoverability neglect, which is common. People might not sleep enough, people might not eat enough, people might train chest 3, 4 times a week. I've seen it before. I've seen people train delts every single day. It's another thing to take into account. What's a day of eating look like for you in the off season versus prep? Um, I'll admit I'm so much better in a prep than I am in an off season. I wish I could execute my off seasons with the same intensity that I could in a prep. In a prep, I'm bulletproof. I lead by example. I do what needs to be done. I tick boxes. I'm fucking robotic. In an off season, that's not me, unfortunately. But if I'm being diligent and everything's on track, which is what it is most of the time, it's just eating more of what you were eating in the prep. Maybe a little bit more flexibility, a meal out with friends on the weekend, a meal out on a after a busy day of work, or a meal at home, a meal with a family. But generally speaking, it's just eating more and eating simple foods which I enjoy and which are easy to prepare and don't make things too inconvenient. How do I manage cravings or social situations when dieting? If I'm competing, this isn't a conversation. I know my why. I know why I'm doing it. I know why I've subjected myself to it. And as a result of that, then there's no concerns, right? So In regards to that, generally I'd look towards avoiding these kind of situations where you know you're going to be faced with food. I know it's not ideal, but in a comp prep, people would understand. If it was just a typical dieting phase, I would generally look at calorie banking. I would generally look at reserving some calories and making a responsible choice. And in making that responsible choice, it's not about going to the restaurant and then picking something reasonable off the menu. It's picking a restaurant where it would be appealing to choose something reasonable on the menu, i.e., going to a steakhouse, going for some fish. If you're going to a burger restaurant, you're not going to get a lettuce wrap. You're not going to not have chips. You're not going to not want to get dessert after it. But if you go on a meat and wine co, you can get your eye fillet, you can get a nice sauce on the side, you can get some vegetables, and it's going to be enjoyable. And you're not going to feel like you're missing out. And cheat meals or refeed days, to be honest with you, it really depends on the context. Cheat meals I like, especially in the context outside of a competition preparation. In a comp prep, I would very, 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 very rarely incorporate any kind of cheat meal. If anything, I don't think I have ever, outside of clients who are really burnt out, gotten unwell, like some with flus and stuff like that, periods of under eating, etc. But if we're looking for purely making it constructive, then refeed days are going to be the way to go. Structured refeed days, calculating carbohydrates, making sure they're at an adequate level slash threshold to ensure that physiological adaptations are settled. We have no measure over cheat meals, but cheat meals, off-plan meals, we like to call them, in the context of a growth phase or calories being higher with no definitive end goal. You got to live your life, right? And you don't want to take that away from someone. What's one thing you wish every client understood before starting online coaching? Every client, every person. This is ChatGPT. So, um, before starting coaching with me is what I think that question is asking. It is going to require a commitment. It is going to require you to be invasive on some areas of your life. As cohesive as we want to make it to your lifestyle and make sure that you continue to enjoy yourself, there is going to need to be an active effort. And that active effort is inevitable. Now, a lot of people will preach balance and how you can do this and how you can do that. There's going to be periods where you don't have as much balance or no balance, depending on the extremity of your goal. If you're looking to get stage lean, if you're looking to lose 50, 60 kilos, something extreme, there is going to be areas where you are restricted. And that's okay because it's a means to an end. How do you keep clients accountable and consistent when motivation drops? Refer back to how I stay motivated. We rely on our systems. We rely on what we do. We rely on our why. We rely on the fact that there's a lot of things we don't want to do every day. When you hit that snooze alarm in the morning, people don't want to go to work. They still do it because they're obliged to do it. It's a requirement to put food on the table for their family. When people, there's plenty of things that people don't want to do. People don't want to brush their teeth, but they don't want fucking tooth decay, right? Um, what else? There's so many examples that I could give you of things that we do on a typical day to day, which aren't necessarily enjoyable, but we do them anyway. I don't think females want to be sitting there painting their faces for an hour before heading out. I'm not saying this is something you need to do. They've conditioned themselves to think that they need to do it, and then as a result, they do it. Similarly, we don't need to be absolutely shredded and sacrificed to get there, but if we've conditioned ourselves to do that, or that's our goal, then we're going to do it. I don't think the makeup example was a good one. But it's just an example of something that people don't necessarily want to do, but they do anyway. Unless they do want to do it, you tell me. Guys or girls. There's obviously guys that wear it too. But yeah, there's just so many things, and we need to acknowledge that motivation we can't necessarily rely on. Okay. Good health, good physique outcomes, good health outcomes, they're going to require effort. Because these days, or in modern day, it's so easy just to get the Uber Eats, get a steak delivered, get some hot chips delivered, get a pizza delivered. So convenient. It's more annoying to go out and have to cook chicken, right? But sometimes we need to bend over a little bit to get to where we want to be, unless we want to stay the same. If you want to stay the same, when motivation drops, just fall off. What separates a good coach from a great coach? Have different perspectives on this. So previously, I would have said skill set or something along those lines, but one of the things I've learned with recent coaches is being able to recognize an individual as a human being, recognize a person as a human being, and be able to work to the strengths and weaknesses. And this is predominantly in essence of one psychology. And I think in essence of one psychology, we must be incredibly, we must play into this to our full potential to make sure one remains adherent, one remains excited, one remains motivated. And I know I said motivation doesn't count, but there needs to be a clear direction and a clear purpose in everything that we do. So having a thorough explanation and installing belief in the individual, I think is important as well, because I've had coaches who have believed in me. I've had other coaches who haven't believed in me. And the ones that believe in me, I've gotten exponentially further with Because when I doubt myself, I recognize what we're endeavoring to achieve and the fact that we are likely to achieve it. And what's one lesson bodybuilding has taught you that applies to outside of the gym? That persistence and consistency will get you to where you want to be, provided you have a clear, definitive target and very refined processes. And ultimately assured me that you are ultimately capable of anything that you put your mind to. So, whatever you want to achieve, you can do it. Just make sure you put your mind to it. You have bulletproof systems, you have the right people around you, and you will get there in the end. Thank you for watching. I hope this was enjoyable. Like, subscribe, all that shit, and feel free to drop a comment. I'll speak to you guys soon.